This. This is the letter I wrote on January 23, 1850. I was 41 years old. I had a wife who didn't understand me, a law practice I hated, 2 sons I barely knew, and a depression so deep I couldn't see the surface anymore. I wrote this letter to explain why I was ending my life. I never sent it. Not because someone stopped me, not because I had some divine revelation, but because of something that happened at exactly 4:17 p.m. on a Tuesday that I will describe to you in detail. Something so small, so insignificant, that you'll wonder why I'm making a 25-minute video about it. But that insignificant thing is the reason I'm speaking to you right now. It's the reason 4 million enslaved people became free. It's the reason the Union survived. It's the reason you're watching this instead of reading about President Stephen Douglas in your history books. My name is Abraham Lincoln, and I need to tell you about the power of the letter you never send, the words you never say, the action you never take. Because sometimes, not sending the letter is the most important decision of your life. January 1850, Springfield, Illinois. I was what modern doctors would call severely clinically depressed. In my time, they called it melancholia or hypochondria, or just Lincoln being Lincoln. I had suffered episodes since my 20s, but this one was different. This one had teeth. My law partner, William Herndon, later wrote that I was reduced to 180 pounds. Which for a man 6'4" meant I looked like a skeleton wearing clothes. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep without medication that left me groggy and useless. I would sit in our law office for hours, staring at the wall, not moving, not speaking. Mary and I were struggling. She had her own demons. The loss of our son, Eddie, 2 years before, had broken something in her that never quite fixed. She wanted me home more. I couldn't bear to be home, surrounded by his empty chair, his unused toys, the silence where his laughter used to be, and politics. I was done. My one term in Congress had ended in 1849. I had opposed the Mexican-American War, correctly, I still believe, and been politically destroyed for it. They called me unpatriotic. They said I didn't support the troops. Sound familiar? I was finished. At 41, I was a failed politician, a struggling lawyer, a distant father, a disappointing husband, and a man whose own mind had become his worst enemy. So I wrote the letter. I won't read you all of it. Some of it is too personal even now. But I will tell you what I said to Mary. I have failed you in every way a man can fail a woman. I promised you a life of significance, and I have delivered mediocrity. I promised you protection, and I have delivered only my own darkness. You will be better without me. The boys will be better without me. The world will not notice, and that is how I know it's time. I wrote similar words to my law partner, to my stepmother who had raised me with more love than I deserved, to my few remaining friends. I sealed them. I addressed them. I placed them in my desk drawer with instructions for Herndon to deliver them when the time comes. And then I did something I can't fully explain. I went for a walk. It was cold. January in Illinois is not gentle. The wind cuts through you like it has something personal against you. I walked aimlessly, as I often did, through the streets of Springfield, past the State House where I had been defeated, past the church where I had prayed for Eddie, past the homes of men who had more success than I would ever know. I found myself at the train station. Not to get on a train. I had no destination. I just stopped there. I watched the steam rise. I watched people hugging their goodbyes. I watched a porter struggling with luggage and not asking for help. And then I saw him. A boy, maybe 12 years old, black, dressed in clothes too thin for the weather, carrying a stack of newspapers, the Illinois State Journal, I remember specifically, trying to sell them to the passengers getting off the train from Chicago. He was failing. Everyone ignored him, brushed past him. One man actually knocked him down without stopping to help him up. I should have kept walking. I wanted to keep walking. I wanted to go home and finish what I had started. But I didn't. I walked over. I helped him up. I bought a newspaper I didn't want to read. And then, I don't know why, I asked him his name. "Samuel," he said. "Samuel Johnson, sir." "Where do you live, Samuel?" "North of here, sir, with my mother. She does washing." "Is she free?" He looked at me like I had asked if water was wet. "Yes, sir. We're free, born free. But my father wasn't. Died a slave in Kentucky. She walked here." I gave him $1. Too much, probably. He tried to refuse. I insisted. And then I asked him something that still haunts me. "What do you want to be, Samuel, when you grow up?" He didn't hesitate. "A lawyer, sir, like you." I laughed. Actually laughed, for the first time in months. "How do you know I'm a lawyer?" "I seen you before, sir, at the courthouse. You was kind to a colored man there, defending him. My mama pointed you out. Said you was the only white man in Springfield who treated us like people. The only white man in Springfield who treated them like people. I had done that. Me. The failure. The disappointment. The man writing suicide letters in his desk drawer. I had done something that mattered to this boy, to his mother, to people I would never meet. Samuel looked at the $1 in his hand. "I can't take this, sir. It's too much." "Take it," I said. "And Samuel, study hard. Be a lawyer. Be better than me." He smiled. A child's smile, bright and unbroken despite everything. "I will, sir. And, sir, you look sad. My mama says even the saddest man can help someone else, and then he won't be so sad." I watched him walk away, newspapers tucked under his arm, probably going to freeze half the night trying to sell them. And I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Purpose. Not happiness. I wasn't happy. I was still depressed, still broken, still carrying those letters in my desk. But purpose. The understanding that my pain didn't disqualify me from usefulness, that my darkness didn't erase my light, that I could be suicidal at 4 p.m. and still save someone's hope at 4:17 p.m. I walked home. I opened my desk. I took out the letters, and I burned them. Not dramatically, just dropped them in the fireplace. Watched them curl and blacken. Watched the words, "You will be better without me," turn to ash. Because I understood something in that moment that I need you to understand right now. Your pain is not proof that you're useless. Your pain is proof that you're human. And humanity, real, broken, struggling humanity, is exactly what the world needs. I didn't become president the next day. I didn't even become happy. I became functional. I became consistent. I became a man who showed up even when he didn't want to. 1850 became 1851, 1852, 1853, 1854. I practiced law. I won cases. I lost cases. I told stories in courtrooms and made juries laugh at moments they shouldn't laugh. And sometimes that won cases that should have been lost. I watched my surviving sons grow. Robert, serious and studious. Willie, bright and mischievous. Tad, wild and loving. I wasn't a perfect father. I was distant, distracted, often elsewhere even when I was present. But I was there. I didn't leave. That was my victory. Mary and I, we found a rhythm. Not a romance, exactly. a partnership. She managed the house, the social obligations, the things I couldn't manage. I provided, protected, tried to be present. We were both broken people trying to build something stable with cracked materials. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. And then 1854 arrived. The Kansas-Nebraska Act. Stephen Douglas opening the territories to slavery. And something I thought was dead, my political ambition, my sense of mission, stirred. I spent 3 months preparing one speech, 3 months. While other men were planting crops or building businesses, I was studying history, law, moral philosophy. I was building an argument like a carpenter builds a house, beam by beam, joint by joint, until it could stand any storm. The Peoria Speech, October 16, 1854. 3 hours long. I spoke until my voice cracked. I argued that slavery was wrong not because I said so, but because the Founding Fathers had said so, because logic said so, because the moral universe said so. People listened. They printed the speech in newspapers. They started asking me to speak again. They started remembering my name. But here's what I want you to notice. I didn't give that speech because I was healed. I gave it because I was still broken, but I had learned to work with my breaks. The depression never fully left me. I had episodes throughout the 1850s, dark days, weeks where I couldn't function. The hypo, as I called it, would descend like fog, and I would have to wait it out, endure it, survive it. But I had a secret weapon now. I had Samuel's words. Even the saddest man can help someone else, and then he won't be so sad. When I felt the darkness coming, I would find someone to help. A client who couldn't pay. A young lawyer who needed advice. A neighbor in trouble. A stranger at a train station. I built a life not despite my depression, but around it. I made my brokenness part of my architecture. I let the cracks show, and I discovered that people trusted me more because of them. They knew I wasn't pretending. They knew I understood struggle. By 1858, I was running for Senate against Stephen Douglas. The famous debates, 7 of them, thousands of people attending, newspapers covering every word. I lost. Again. But this time, I didn't write a suicide letter. This time, I wrote a speech about the house divided and kept building. By 1860, I was the Republican nominee for president, the dark horse, the compromise candidate. Not because anyone loved me, but because I was the only one everyone could tolerate. I won, not because I was the best, because I was the most prepared. Because I had spent a decade building foundations that nobody saw, laying beams in the dark, preparing for a storm I hoped would never come. February 1862, the White House, 3 a.m. Willie was dying. I told you this part before, but I need you to hear it differently this time. I was in the room, holding his hand, watching my wife dissolve into madness beside me, and I felt it coming, the darkness, the old friend, the hypo. It whispered, "You're going to lose him. You're going to lose everything. You should have sent those letters." I walked out. I couldn't let Mary see me break. I found a closet, yes, the same closet, and I screamed into a towel. But then I did something different. Something I learned from a boy at a train station 12 years before. I found someone to help. I walked to the War Department. Alone, in my nightshirt. The guards were used to me by now. I read the casualty reports. I found a letter from a mother in Ohio who had lost 3 sons at Fort Donelson. She wasn't asking for anything, just telling me, sharing her grief with the only person she thought might understand. I wrote her back, 4 pages, by hand, at 4 a.m. I told her about Eddie, about Willie, who was dying as I wrote, about the impossibility of making sense of such loss. I told her that her sons' deaths mattered, that the cause they died for was worthy, that she had given the nation a gift beyond measure. I didn't tell her that I was writing a suicide letter in my head as I wrote her comfort. I didn't tell her that I had to stop 3 times to wipe away tears that weren't just for her. I just helped. She wrote back. She kept that letter until she died. Her grandchildren donated it to a museum. It's one of the most famous letters I ever wrote, and I wrote it to save myself. That's the secret I need you to understand. Helping others isn't just noble, it's survival. When you can't find a reason to live for yourself, live for the person who needs you. When you can't see your own worth, see the worth you create in others. I became known for this. The president who pardoned deserters when his generals wanted them shot. The president who visited hospitals and shook hands with men who had no hands. The president who wrote personal letters to grieving mothers while his own grief was still wet. They called it compassion. They called it mercy. They didn't know it was medicine. That I was prescribing myself doses of purpose to keep the darkness at bay. The Emancipation Proclamation? I signed it with my whole soul, yes, but also with the memory of a 12-year-old boy named Samuel who told me I was the only white man who treated his people like people. I had to live up to that. I had to become the man that boy believed I was. April 1865, 5 days before I died. The war was ending. Lee had surrendered. I was finally able to imagine a life without constant crisis. A life with Mary, with my surviving sons, with the grandchildren I hope to see. I wrote a letter that day. Not a suicide letter, the opposite. To Samuel Johnson. I had kept track of him over the years, through mutual acquaintances in Springfield. He had done it. He had become a lawyer. Not a famous one, not a wealthy one, but a good one. He helped people, colored people mostly, the ones the legal system ignored. I wrote to tell him that I remembered, that his words at a train station in 1850 had saved a president who would go on to free 4 million people, that he was as responsible for the Emancipation Proclamation as I was. I wrote, "You told me that even the saddest man can help someone else. You were right, and I have tried to prove you right every day since. Thank you for seeing me when I could not see myself." I sealed it. I addressed it. I placed it in my desk to send in the morning. I never sent it. Not because I died, but because I realized I didn't need to. He already knew. The letter was for me, not for him. The act of writing it, of acknowledging the thread that connected that broken afternoon to this hopeful evening, was the final healing. I had gone from writing letters of ending to writing letters of gratitude. From seeing myself as a burden to seeing myself as a bridge. From wanting to die to wanting to thank someone for helping me live. So, what letter are you holding right now? The one to your boss, quitting everything? The one to your partner, ending it all? The one to yourself, finally admitting you've given up? Don't send it. Not yet, not today. Go for a walk instead. In the cold if you have to. In the dark if you must. Find someone to help. Someone smaller than you. Someone struggling more than you. Someone who needs the thing you think you don't have to give. And discover that you have it. That you've always had it. That your pain has been preparing you for this moment of purpose. Burn the letter if you need to. Or rewrite it. Make it a thank you instead of a goodbye. Make it a bridge instead of an ending. I'm Abraham Lincoln. I died before I could send my final letter, but I lived because I never sent my first one. Your story isn't over. The train hasn't left the station. Put down the letter, pick up your life, and build something that outlasts your pain.